So there won't be any empty spaces in there, huh?
No, no black spaces. I can just pause it, because the last time I paused it would just like leave a black space. And, you know, then it's like it kept recording or something. It was weird.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're working on lace. Nancy, Barbara may show up a little bit late, but Nancy heard her back, so she says she's not going to be here at all.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but what we're working on is standalone lace, because last time we worked on, you know, the, like, lace on a base, remember?
Uh-huh.
And well, before we go on, do you have any questions on the lace on a base at all?
No.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and, excuse me, insert an image. And let me get over to the lace images. And I don't know if I sent these all or not, but I'll upload them on the website. It's a little bit different on the video, too, because it records the screen at a smaller resolution. So you guys will have to tell me what those videos are like, and I may just end up plugging in a different monitor to do this. Okay, so here's the lace. And this is standalone lace. We're going to start with something very easy. Let me get rid of my hoop real quick here. And I'm just going to kind of stretch this out a little bit. Okay, so, you know, this image is very, very simple, and understanding how to connect these is important, because basically lace is nothing more than something being connected. And there's all different kinds of lace, but, you know, basically it's making sure that things are connected properly. And this is a real quick and easy design to work on, because, you know, these are all the same, these three pieces right here. All you have to worry about is making sure that these two pieces are connected to this line here. And on this line, you're going to want to make sure that it has a little bit of give to it. Otherwise, you end up with like this kind of fluttery, which, you know, is a nice effect sometimes, and this being very rigid and unmoving, right? But you still have to build a base underneath all of this to support the stitching. So, you know, what we're going to do is, you know, you can start with your single run line, and you can build your base that way, you know, point by point. Or, you know, you can go ahead and you can use your turning angle fill and build this piece and then use your underlay and see if that'll hold up. So you've got a couple of different options. So we're going to start with this option. And I'm going to make this center piece first. And I need it to connect, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take that piece all the way down here. And the center piece is pretty easy. You know, it's going to come up, let me backspace a little, I'll make it a little bit wider. It's going to come up, you know, to the center here, right?
Yes.
But you're going to want to bring it up a little bit, because you're going to want to make sure that that connects. Oh, and I picked the wrong thing. Hold on. This will not work. You want to make sure that you have, I think I can change it this way. Let's see. That it's in satin stitch mode. Nope, I can't change it that way. All right, we'll do it the other way. Okay, so you want to make sure it's in satin stitch mode, and when you're over here, make sure you have the zigzag. So now you've got to worry about connecting these pieces, and we can control our in and outs in this program, so, you know, that makes it kind of nice. That means I can start pretty much anywhere and then just adjust it. So I'm going to pick the start, you know, on like one of the sides here when I make this next piece, instead of, you know, trying to make perfect, you know, points or connections, you know, match up, right?
Okay.
So, you know, I'm going to try to keep this even. But I have to worry about this piece here, because I need that point and I need that to connect, right? So I'm going to left click and left click. And the reason I didn't want to start at one of these points is that I don't want, you know, the connection to be here. Even though I can change my in and out points, I would really rather that the connection be someplace that's easier to connect, like, uniformly.
Yes.
So let me go ahead and get this side done real quick here. And I'll probably edit that one little point there and overlap this. Okay, so let me zoom in a little bit on this and edit that so I can get a nice even overlap. And I want to overlap a little bit. I'm just going to move that in point for right now. And if I need to, I'm going to left click here to make a straight point to straighten that out a little bit. Okay, so let's zoom out. I'm going to zoom back around just to make sure I have my shape. And I might pull this one a little bit more, maybe make that a little bit thicker coming into here. Just to make sure that that, you know, catches well. Okay, so there's my first heart, right? I'm a little bit fatter here. I could adjust. That probably needs adjusting, but and you want to do your editing on this one because, you know, you're going to have to make sure that, you know, this first heart that you do is going to be basically the one that's going to connect everything else. You know, you're just going to copy and paste it across here, right?
Right.
Okay, so there's my first heart. You know, it's looking pretty uniform. This piece is good, and this is the size that it actually is, to give you an idea. Okay?
Okay.
Now, what I need to look at it, these two pieces are the same. I just have to check my in and out points. And, you know, there's my in point, there's my out point, right?
Right.
And if I want to, I can bring them both down here. And then when I look at this piece, you know, let me zoom in because that's got a whole lot more pieces or, you know, points to it. I can start that, you know, as my in point down here. And my out point's going to be right here. And I'm going to want to move that maybe up to here. Okay, and then I'm going to go into my settings. Now, you know, I can drop this density down a little bit, maybe about, you know, depending on what you want. You know, try like 95, try 90, you know, see which preference, you know, you have depending on your thread, right? On my underlay, edge run is not going to be enough. You know, so I could do, you know, double zigzag. Probably what would be best would be, you know, I could do this double zigzag. I could do the weave. Center run and edge run I could do. And, you know, here's my stitch length, right? I might be better off at this point to go ahead and, you know, try the double zigzag because that's going to build a little bit. And go ahead and use, you know, my single run line or triple run line here. And, you know I started down here, so, you know, I can very easily, you know, follow the shape of this with that run line that I'm making, right?
Yes.
And basically you're just building a base. I'll go ahead and connect that.
Now, is that going to be on top?
It is until we move it.
Oh.
Yeah, it'll be on top until we move it. Okay, so, you know, other than a couple of editing points, just to make sure that they, you know, stay tucked in. You know, there's kind of my initial base, right? Now I'll move this one down too, just to make sure it stays tucked in. Okay, so let me change the color on that just so you know what that is, right? Okay, there's my initial base. Now, even though we did a double zigzag on our underlay, right? What we should do is, you know, go ahead and either do it manually, or you can use your steel tool, but you have so much more control when you still have some control with your steel tool. Or, you know, you can use this stem stitch line or even, you know, this back stitch line. But the stem stitch line is pretty much a zigzag that gives you a little more control. And we stopped here, right?
Right.
So we can come around and just follow these lines. And what I can do with this stem stitch is I can go into the settings, and I have some control here. You know, my line thickness, you know, maybe 1 is good, maybe, you know, 1.5 is good. You know, the spacing, I can take that down to like 1. You know, my angle is good, and, you know, stitch thickness isn't making too much difference here. And let me change the color so we can see what's going on with that. And, you know, if you need to make sure that everything's kind of tucked in, you know, you can always come in here and edit, right? And just make sure that those are tucked in well. Okay, so there's our base. You know, we've got the, you know, zigzag stitch going over top of that initial base, and, you know, we end up down here, which is good because, you know, we start, like, this section starts down here too, right? So now that you've got your base, you can just hold your control key and left click on those little, you know, the little icons, I guess is the best word for the sections, and then just move it up above where your starting place is, right? Now, you can also change the color. I'm going to go ahead and select all of these, and if I left click and hold my shift key, I select all of them at one time. And I'm going to go ahead and just change them to like a rose color. So what we've got, if we go out of 3D view and we look at this in our stitch viewer, and I moved all my icons around, so I'm looking for these now. Here we go, ready? We've got, let me slow us way down. Well, I guess we're good. We've got that triple line forming. That's our base, right? There's our double triple line, so we know we've got like this nice little base. And there's our little zigzag. And let me stop this and we'll do it a different one. You know, there's some advantages to that being off to the side. You know? Okay, so there's our first little heart. And we end here, right? But the problem is we start down here. If you remember on this piece, you know, this piece right here, you know, there's our end point, right? So, you know, if we're going to use all of this to copy and put it here, we're going to have to remember that we start down here and we end up here. This piece, you know, ends here, right? And we're going to have to build a little run line in. And if we build that run line in, we can use it for the next one as well. So I'm going to go ahead and select my run line. Just a simple little run line, and I can take it from here down to here where, you know, we start. You know what? Let me check that. Sorry. This is where we start. So let's see where that one starts. Yep, it starts down there too. Okay, so here we're just going to build our little run line from, hold on one second. So, you know, here's our piece we have to run to. So we're going to go ahead and select the run line, and we're just going to go from here down to here where we start. That's it. So now we've got these pieces all together, and we can come over here, and we can select these pieces, just hold the shift key, click on the first one, then click on the last one. You've got those all selected. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit. Then I'm going to come up to edit, and I'm going to group this section. Then I'm going to copy it, paste it, or I could just do duplicate. And, I'm going to move this over so that the point is where I want it, right there. Left click again till you get that little rotate. And this little dot that I just moved down here is a pivot point, right? So if I use the rotate and I move that pivot point, what's going to happen is that I can easily position this, without having to move it all over the place. See, there's my pivot point. And it just makes it easier than trying to nudge it, move it, nudge it, And there's my overlap. Now, I could go ahead and nudge this down a little bit. Maybe over just a tad. Okay, so what I've got, now I have to make an adjustment on this piece here, but that's not a big deal. But what I've got is that nice little overlap here that's going to connect these two hearts together. Does that make sense? Shirley, you there? I'm going to pause this for. So now that I've got the heart in place, all I have to worry about is this piece. And since it's all connected to this, I can't really get to it to edit. So what I can do is, with this second heart selected, go up to Edit and ungroup it. So now these are all individual pieces, and I can get to this piece now. Since we know that all of these hearts, kind of come down here, I'm going to delete this. And I'm just going to go ahead and enter that one again. Let me move the little chat bubble out of the way. I'm just going to select that. I know that I end here. And, I can go up around. I can go any way I want to get this to stop down here. That's basically what I need, is to make sure that it just stops where the next piece picks up. So there's my run line now to that. Okay, now, I've got the heart pieces that I now have to connect again. And I can do it a couple of ways. I could just select this one, and, copy and move it over to here. Or, I can go over to here and I can just pick this piece, hold the control key, and pick the pieces that I need, right? That second heart. So either way, I can come and get the original one, knowing that I'll have to get rid of this. Or I can pick the pieces individually that I really want to copy, and I'm going to group those again. Then I would go back up and edit and duplicate that. So now I've got that third heart. And, the same thing, you're going to move that over. I'm going to pick the point where I want it to line up. Left click a second time until I get the open boxes, and I'm going to move my little pivot point down here. And then I'm just going to rotate this into place. And, if you don't like where it's rotated, no big deal. You can always move that pivot point again. You can move it over to here. And, you have a lot of different options. Left click again, rotate again. There's another way that we can do this that is a little bit quicker, perhaps. Okay, so this is way number one. And what I've got is, let me go ahead and close the participant list right now. So what I've got is these three hearts, and I copied and pasted it in that fashion. Or, I can do it like this. Okay, if I want to make sure that these two are pretty much in the same position, I can always come up to this first heart. I'm going to edit, duplicate it. So now I've got, my third heart's down here. And then I'm going to use these flip tools and just flip it and use the arrows to move this over into position. I could drag it, but if I really want to keep this, even all the way across, using the arrows doesn't take generally too long to move. And all I have to do is make sure that this lines up. And, now I know that I've got, these pieces in position, but I still have to deal with this little piece right here. So just go up to Edit and Ungroup and select that little piece for the running stitch and delete it. Okay, does that make sense? Let me check the chat. Okay, so now, does that make sense, Shirley, the different ways to do this? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom out now. Okay, so we've got this section completed. This bottom piece is, is just a graphic. I don't really have to worry about it. But if you look where this heart now ends, because we flipped it, we need to do one more thing. So I need to come in here. If I want to continue along with making sure I know where my out points are, the end point is pretty much the same on each one. I'll move my out point over. Okay, so now my out point is going over to that next section of hearts. And we need to connect that as well. So, what we can do is something very, very simple. We've got all of these pieces in place. So we can just left click and drag this, group it, duplicate it. And, I'm just going to left click and drag this over and try to position it. And I want to make sure that there's an overlap on this, right? And if you're worried about them lining up at the bottom, you have an aligning option. So if we left click and drag around both of these, we select, both of these group sections. Okay, this is only going to really work if you're grouped, because otherwise all the pieces will move. So both sections are grouped. I'm going to select both of my sections, and I'm going to use the aligning tool. And I'm going to align them by their bottoms or by their tops. So now I know that they're perfectly aligned. And if I really look, I could do that all the way across here. Now I've got two of them. So I can edit, I can duplicate, drag these over into position, right? Drag and select everything. And then just align them. Okay, all I'm worried about is how much overlap are between these sections. And these two I would need to nudge over a little bit. Don't always go by the image. You're more concerned with, now that you've got this base, making sure that there's a good overlap to build that lace. Okay, so we've got 4 pieces. I'm going to go ahead and zoom to 100%. And, I don't really, I'm going to base this on my hoop size, right? So if you have this size hoop, great. Let me go ahead and select everything and rotate it and see where I fit. And if I'm not sure where I fit, I'm going to get rid of the image. And let me see. You can go up to setup or, setup and work environment, and let's auto center us. Okay, so now, if depending on what size machine I have or what size, I may only be able to do 3 of these. Okay, but it depends on your machine. So I'm going to just stick with the 200 millimeter hoop, and there are 3 pieces. Now, the only thing, actually, these will hold together, but these little points will kind of flip around, right? So I need to, I don't have you muted. I'm not sure what happened. Let me go ahead and see if I can figure this out. Yeah, you're muted now, but I didn't mute you. Okay, can you hear me now? Shirley, try talking, see if it works. Shirley, can you hear me? So now, we have this nice little thing, and we could, make a nice little straight line to connect everything. Or, if we really want to, we could do something, completely different. I'm going to group this, and, I'm going to copy and paste it. And, we could connect the lace a little differently. We could connect the lace like this. And, just run a line straight down there. And if we do run the line straight down there, we could just use, the border tool to do that. What you're going to look for is where you end. And, right now where we end, we're right here. So we would, want to double check like where we start and where we end on this, right? Even if we, use this piece right here, right? Let me go back here. On this piece, I'm going to get rid of this. Okay, on this piece, we end here. So, if I want to create, a connection, I would move the last part here. I would move that in and out point, okay? But right now, we're just kind of playing. And this piece, to make it easy, I would flip it and find out where my start point is here, which we know it's in here. So we would move that so that we could start. And there's our end point, okay? But for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to, select the steel tool or the running tool. And I'm going to make a connection here. And I want to be careful, if I'm going to combine this lace with other things, I'm going to check this, and double check that these pieces line up correctly. Because I'll have to adjust this. But, if I hold the control key, I get a perfectly straight line. And I'll bring it all the way down to here and press enter. Then just go into your settings and change the width. How wide do you need this to be? We'll make it 3. What underlay do we want? We want our double zigzag again. So we can make it that wide. Or, if you don't want something that's quite that wide, you can always come in here and make it 2. And move these pieces over. Okay, so that they're connecting in. Okay, on this piece, we want to be very careful that, we don't make it so dense and so rigid. These hearts are kind of floating on their own. I could make a little connector if I wanted to, or I could leave them that way. Or, really, if I just want a nice little line, I could do it like this. So I have a lot of different options with this. I could even just make little tiny circular motifs if I wanted to. So I have a lot of options with this, but what I'm worried about here is that these have to connect, and I don't want this line to be so rigid that everything else is loose and this is rigid. So I have to be careful what I do, but I do want to build a base here. I'm going to go ahead and change that color so you can see too what I'm working on. I do want to build, a base here. I've got the double zigzag, but I'm not going to build quite as crazy of a base. I'll just do, something like a triple run. And, we end there. We start right about here. So, there's my triple run line, right? And, I might want to change this to 3. There's my triple run line. I'm going to end down there. Okay, we have this return option. So I'm going to make a backtrack line. So there's my second line. And I'm going to go into object details, and instead of triple run, I'll pick, the stem stitch line. And, change my settings to, what I had before. I'll make this like 1.5. My spacing's at 1. There's my little stem stitch line. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and edit and duplicate this since this is just a straight line. I could duplicate it, or I can do the same thing. I can just do that, backtrack line, right? Maybe not. Hold on, I got to select it and then backtrack. Okay, so now what I've got is 3 lines that backtrack on each other, and I'm not moving the in and out points, but I need to come in here and change that to a satin line. And again, you can adjust your density. Okay, since we have, a couple people that are out and we're having some trouble with the audio, we're going to pick up the lace again on the next webinar, which I will be in Florida next week, but I'll stop and we're doing videos again, but I'll stop and we'll do our webinar. So you guys, actually, I have a webcam, so you might be able to get to see my studio as well, plus my video guy. So, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now, and I'll send these images, upload them to the webpage. So if you want to work on this lace first, what we're going to move on to is some more complicated lace. Let me save this. Okay, what we're going to move on to is some more complicated lace, which is going to be, let me get the images in. It's going to be a little more complicated in that, it's got some standalone features. Like this is an open kind of lace, and we're going to look at how to work on this type of lace. And there's also a little more solid lace. So we're going to look at next time how to work on both of these. And then, we're going to look at making more of like a Richelieu lace that has that net base underneath it, but we're going to, not so much net, but like that woven, line base. And we're going to work on that, probably in 2 weeks. So, well, I'm going to end this, and we'll see you guys next week.